The ceiling fan hummed a lazy rhythm above the breakfast table, stirring the heavy August air that smelled faintly of magnolia and rain. Daniel sat alone with his coffee, eyes fixed on the slow swirl of cream dissolving into the dark liquid. He'd woken before dawn, as he always did, out of habit, the kind of discipline left over from his years as a paramedic before he moved into hospital administration. But lately, mornings had started to feel different. Quieter. Not peaceful, just empty. The kitchen clock ticked too loudly. The chair opposite him sat untouched, her usual mug missing from its place beside the sink. Emily had started leaving earlier these days. Earlier and earlier. She used to linger in the mornings, barefoot, hair a mess, humming to the radio while packing her lunch or talking about nothing in particular. Lately, her conversations had turned shorter. Her laughter less frequent. She'd begun wearing perfume to work again, a scent Daniel hadn't noticed on her in years, something light, citrusy, and unfamiliar. At first, he told himself he was imagining things. People go through phases. Relationships shift. 12 years of marriage meant ups and downs. He knew that. But there was something in her eyes, a certain glow when her phone lit up, a quick smile she tried to hide, that made the back of his neck tighten. That morning, as he rinsed his mug and stared out through the kitchen window, he saw her car pull out of the driveway. She didn't look back. By the third week of August, Daniel could no longer ignore the feeling that something had changed. Emily had started taking late meetings. Her job as a real estate agent often demanded evening showings, and at first that made sense. Charleston was full of tourists, second-home buyers, people who wanted to see the city glow under gas lamps and cobblestone streets. But one night, while Daniel was driving home from a late shift at the hospital, he happened to pass the Battery, the long, scenic waterfront where she sometimes brought clients to impress them. Her car was parked there. And she wasn't alone. From his truck, he saw her, standing under a streetlight, talking to a man. Tall, dressed casually in a white shirt. The kind of posture that said confidence or carelessness. They were close. Too close. Her head tilted back when she laughed. She reached out to touch his arm. Daniel's heart dropped, not in a cinematic crash, but in a quiet, sickening fall. He didn't confront her that night. He couldn't. He drove home, parked in the driveway, and sat there for nearly an hour, watching the rain bead on the windshield until his hands stopped trembling. When she finally came home, she kissed him on the cheek. She smelled like the same perfume, and the faint, salty breeze of the waterfront. Long day? Daniel asked the next morning, pretending to scroll through his phone. Emily yawned, setting down her keys. Yeah. A nightmare. The Hendersons kept arguing over kitchen countertops for 2 hours. I swear, if one more client. She trailed off, catching his gaze. What? He smiled faintly. Nothing. You just look tired. Thanks, she said flatly, brushing past him to the bedroom. He watched her go, feeling the truth coil tighter in his gut. That weekend, he started noticing the small things. The way she hit her phone screen when a message came through. The way she suddenly changed the subject when he mentioned dinner plans. Even her wardrobe had shifted, softer fabrics, new colors, dresses she hadn't worn since their early years. Daniel told himself not to jump to conclusions. He'd seen enough broken families through his years in emergency response, people who let suspicion rot them from the inside. But the silence between them was growing louder each day. On a humid Thursday evening, Daniel's phone buzzed while Emily was in the shower. It was a notification from their shared phone plan, something about data usage. Out of idle curiosity, he opened the account. Her number showed hundreds of messages. Late at night. All to the same contact. The name listed was AJ. His stomach turned. He didn't recognize it. He could have looked through her phone right then. He could have done what his instincts screamed for him to do. But instead, He sat at the edge of their bed, the sound of running water muffled behind the bathroom door, and felt something fragile inside him begin to splinter. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel, smiling faintly, he saw her differently. Not as his wife, but as a stranger wearing her face. That weekend, Charleston was swallowed in heat. The air pressed heavy against the windows, cicadas humming in the distance like a low electric current. Daniel mowed the lawn, sweat dripping down his temples, pretending everything was fine. From the porch, Emily waved before heading out, just a showing in Mount Pleasant. Her sundress fluttered in the hot breeze, white with soft blue flowers. He nodded, forcing a smile, watching her drive off. 5 minutes later, he went inside, opened her laptop, and logged in. He told himself it was wrong. He told himself he didn't want to find anything. But deep down, he already knew. The first thing he noticed was the folder, hidden but not too hidden. Client files, pending. Inside were property listings, contracts, and one PDF titled Battery House Proposal, AJ.PDF. He opened it. There were photos of a downtown apartment, brick walls, river view, balcony overlooking the marina. It wasn't for a client. It was for a lease. 2 signatures sat at the bottom. Hers, Emily Harper. And the other, Andrew Jacobs. Daniel's blood ran cold. He clicked into her emails. Search, Andrew. The screen filled with messages. Can't wait to see you tonight. I'm counting the hours. Don't back out this time. I love how you smell after the rain. The words blurred as Daniel's eyes stung. His jaw clenched. He closed the laptop, the sound of it snapping shut echoing through the kitchen. For a moment, he just stood there, breathing hard, gripping the counter. He wanted to scream. To call her. To drive somewhere and forget everything. Instead, he did what he'd done his whole life, he controlled it. He planned. That night, he cooked dinner, steak, her favorite, the one she always said he made better than any restaurant. He poured wine, lit a candle. When Emily came home, she looked startled. What's all this? Just missed you, Daniel said, smiling faintly. Figured we could have a nice night. She smiled, hesitant, cautious, but sat down. They ate in silence for a while, forks scraping softly against the plates. Then Daniel leaned back and said quietly, So, who's Andrew Jacobs? The knife slipped from her hand, clattering onto the plate. What? He held her gaze. Calm. Steady. You heard me. Her face went pale. He's a client. Why? Funny, Daniel said. Clients don't usually sign leases with their realtors. The silence that followed was suffocating. She stared at him, lips parted, eyes wet with panic. Daniel, please. It's not. Don't, he said sharply. Don't lie to me. Not now. Her breath hitched. She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring. I didn't mean for it to happen. Those words, didn't mean for it to happen, hit him harder than any confession. It meant everything he feared was true. How long? He asked. 6 months, she whispered. He laughed, short, bitter. 6 months. Jesus, Emily. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought we were falling apart. You were always working. You barely looked at me anymore. I was working for us, he snapped. For our future. And you were out building one with someone else. She buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry. Daniel pushed back from the table, the chair screeching against the tile. He walked outside, the humid air slapping his face, trying to breathe through the rage pounding in his chest. For the next few days, they barely spoke. She slept in the guest room. He started coming home late. But the silence was no longer quiet, it was poisoned. Every creak of the house reminded him of her voice whispering to someone else. Every empty glass, every half-folded blanket on the couch felt like proof of betrayal. One night, he came home to find her sitting in the dark living room, eyes red. "I ended it," she said softly. "With Andrew. I told him I can't do it anymore." Daniel didn't answer. "I know I hurt you," she whispered. "But I love you, Daniel. I swear I do." He stared at her for a long time. Then, finally, "You killed something, Emily. And love won't bring it back." He turned and walked upstairs. The next week, he filed for divorce. Quietly. Efficiently. No shouting, no scandal, just a clean, clinical end to what had once been his entire world. When the papers arrived, Emily stood in the kitchen holding them, her hands shaking. "Is this really it?" He nodded. "It's been it for a long time." Her eyes filled again. "You don't even want to talk about it? About us?" "There's nothing left to say." She bit her lip, then whispered, "I never stopped loving you." Daniel looked at her for the last time and said, "Then you should have acted like it." Months later, autumn rolled in. Charleston's streets were golden with fallen leaves. Daniel had moved into a small apartment overlooking the river, nothing fancy, just quiet. He'd taken up running again, cooking for himself, trying to fill the spaces her absence had carved out. One evening, he passed by the waterfront, the Battery, where he'd once seen her laughing with that man. The same place everything inside him had started to die. He stopped there, watching the tide roll in, the light fading against the water. And for the first time, he didn't feel anger. Just a strange, empty peace. He realized betrayal hadn't destroyed him, it had stripped him down to what was real. The silence he'd feared all those months was no longer the sound of something ending. It was the sound of something beginning. The end.